So, what are real numbers? I mean the set of real numbers. The set of real numbers are, as far as we concerned, is a field. So what do you mean by a field? Field is the set with the two binary operations are given for us. So we'll denote the set of real numbers as R, and we are equipped with the two binary operations, addition as well as multiplication. Multiplication more conveniently we will use by dot or without dot also. It satisfies some properties. Obviously, the first notion is R under addition, how the behavior is. It's going to be a group. What do you mean by a group? It means you take any A and B from R, two real numbers, just you can add them, it will be again inside real number. It is again inside a system of real numbers. It is closed under addition. That is what is closure is. Secondly, associativity holds. You can associate three elements, two elements in any fashion as you like. A plus B then plus C will give you A plus B plus C for every A, B, C in R. There is a distinguished element we call the identity element under this addition. Denote it is by 0, such that A plus 0 is going to be A and it is same as 0 plus A. So it keeps the identity of every element A. We call that fellow as the 0 element or the additive identity. Next thing is, any real number you take it out, there exists a negative element I can call, minus A I can denote it. It's also a real number. On addition with that, in any manner, it gives the additive identity, 0. It's annihilates, it kills towards the 0 element. Up to these four properties are holding with R, we call that a group. R is a group under addition. Additionally, we have the fact that A plus B same as B plus A for every A, B in R, which means the order of addition is not considered. I mean, A plus B or B plus A are going to be the same. So it's usually called the commutativity of the operation. In such a setup, we say that R under addition is either a commutative group or an abelian group. We have another operation called multiplication also, but that multiplication for convenience we will use it as dot and without dot also later. So R under multiplication, as you are discussed with addition, closure is concerned now with the multiplication. Associativity is also guaranteed. An existence of an identity element is there, but now it is for multiplication, which means we denote multiplicative identity by 1. That 1, what is the peculiarity for 1 and speciality for 1 is nothing other than that A into 1 is same as 1 into A, which is same as A. It keeps the identity under that operation. Here the operation is multiplication. So once multiplicative identity is applied, the next thing is about inverse. But here you should be careful. All non-zero element, already an additive identity is there. You just take away from that. You stay away from that. Then there exists an element called inverse, multiplicative inverse. Either you can write 1 by A or A to the power minus 1 also. So 1 by A, that element, what it does is A into 1 by A, 1 by A into A will take you to the multiplicative identity 1. As before, it says. So non-zero elements inverse is guaranteed. That's the only difference here. Additionally, order is immaterial, which says that A, B is same as B. Now, two more axioms you will assume. We call distributivity. Basically, it says the compatibility of these two operations. First to do addition, then multiply. It will be same as first multiply, then add. That is what is maintained in both sides. So that connects how addition and multiplication are correlated. So R with these two binary operation and these 12 laws or axioms, I can say, it makes you into a field. So with this system, R under addition and multiplication, it is easy to handle other properties. I mean, algebraic properties easily one can state and prove and see, for example, we know the following. The previous axioms actually gives that 0 is under addition if you are calling for R, A plus 0 is 0 for every A. That is known for us. So, 0 plus A is going to give you A, that we know. So, if you are giving 0 is the only element which has property, that is what is going to give it now, which means as a theorem we will state it now. The first statement, the A part is nothing other than that you take Z and A are elements in R with Z plus A equals A, then Z must be 0. It means, see, 0 plus A equals A for every A, that we know. But if you have a relationship, Z is a real number, A is like that, A is also a real number, then you add Z plus A and it gives back A, then that Z must be 0. That is what it considers. So that actually follows very easily from the field axioms. Just by using that, we can take it. So how to prove that? Such proofs are the real essence of analysis. So what we have only 12 axioms which governs the field axiom on R. Nothing more than that we know. So just we have freedom to use that, nothing more. So how can you use all these things? The only thing given additionally is Z plus A is A. So let us try to look at how the proof goes. The first part we will try. Z plus A is going to give you A. We have to show that Z is 0. So look at Z. Z, by the previous laws, we can simply write Z plus 0 because identity under addition is 0. Z plus 0 must give you Z. That we know. Now that 0, we can rewrite it as using this A plus minus A I can write. A plus minus A, this ideally has to give 0. I am just going through the laws which is already guaranteed. Now associativity will hold, which I can rewrite. I can join Z plus A first and minus A next. But it is useful. Now Z plus A, if you are looking at, what happens is, it is given to be A. I will use it. So this gives you A plus minus A again. A plus negative of that element should be 0. So which says, ideally, Z equals 0. So it guarantees the following. If you have the relationship Z plus A equals A, then such a Z must be 0. So how beautifully the proof works once you are assuming the axioms in that rigorous manner. That is the beauty. Now this is about addition. Very similar argument you can try, and that is what is the second part of the theorem is giving. What it says is, whenever you are considering multiplication and you look at, see, 1 is the multiplicative identity that we know. So if you have 1 into anything is always giving, but 1 is the only element which has such a property, which says that is what is given by B. It is given in this fashion. U and B are supplied. So this U and B are like that. U into B, that is again B. Then such a situation, U must be 1. Provided you should some requirements, because B is concerned, B you have to avoid it from there, it should be away from 0. That is an additional requirement that immediately you will see why is it needed. The same type of argument what you have given for addition result, in the changing the operation you will get it here. See, UB equals B. Additionally, B not equal to 0 is given. B not equal to 0 is given means 1 by B exists. That is the multiplicative inverse exists, that we know. So in the same fashion one can try to understand what exactly in that case U. So simply U, if you are writing now, U into 1 easily one can write. But 1 you can replace it by U into b into 1 by b. Because b is away from 0, this can be done. That also follows from the axioms, which by associativity we can rewrite like this. But ub is given to be b. Apply it. So b into 1 by b. It again gives you 1. So ultimately u must be 1. The very same strategy you can use it. So these are just analogous things what you have done. But these results are really fascinating. You will get the proofs in such a nice fashion. Finally, any real number multiplied with 0 definitely has to give 0. We are in need of a proof. So how to do that? A into anything is 0. A into 0 is always gives you 0. So how can you proceed that? See, we have some tools here. The first part, A part, is actually something like this. Z and A are real numbers. Then if Z plus A is equals A, then such a Z must be 0. This is a known result for us. We can easily use that. Instead of, see, what you are trying to prove here is A into 0 is going to be the 0 element. So try with that. That is, A into 0, if you want to prove that it is 0 element, we can make use of first part. Simply add A. Then what it happens, you just observe. So this is A into 0 plus A. We can rewrite A into 0 plus A into 1, which gives us A into 0 plus 1. That is A into 1. These are all through the laws. You can justify one by one. Right? This is distributivity. This is actually using 0 plus 1 is again 1, like that. A into 1 is again going to be A. So what matches now? A into 0 plus A is going to give you A. Now compare it with this. Already resulted Z plus A is A. In such a case, Z must be 0. So use it Z here for this fellow. A into 0 plus A is giving back A. So A into 0 must be 0. Very neat. So how nicely all these kind of results follows once you are assuming the algebraic structure, something like a field. That is important. This is not the only instance what you can see. Under addition and multiplication, if you are doing like this, many fantastic results you can have it. They are coming as theorems. So this is the first theorem in that spirit. One more theorem we can just look at. So that theorem has two parts. It's also natural to think, because we are practicing its conditions in with natural operations and all, but we are proving it from the upper side. We are just assuming the axioms and doing it. We are not supposed to use any other things. So what this theorem says, the first part is, any non-zero element A is given, B is a real number, and we know that A into B is 1. Then in such a case, B must be the inverse of A. 1 by A is a notation. A is away from 0, 1 by A exists. That is the only thing is guaranteed by the axiom. So 1 by A exists is known for us. And if A and B are going to give you the multiplicative identity, then such a B must be the multiplicative inverse. That actually says about inverses. The previous result was about identities. Now we are coming by the inverses, such an analogous situation. So A into B is 1, then compulsorily B must be the inverse of A, which means 1 by A notation. We need a proof for that. So how to do that? This is the assumption. AB is giving you 1. A is away from 0. A is not equal to 0 means definitely 1 by A exists, as I mentioned. Now, to say that B is 1 by A, start with your B. Then I can rewrite B as something like see 1 into b. So 1 into b, I can see a not 0, 1 by a is guaranteed. What is 1 by a? That we know, because this is simply 1 by a into a is going to give 1. That is the known part for us. Just apply that for 1. So b is 1 into b. That one I am replacing it by 1 by a into b. Associativity I can use it now. This fellow 1 by a into ab will be coming out. But what is AB? AB is applied to be 1. Just use that 1 by A times 1. Naturally, that should be 1 by A only. So altogether, B must be same as 1 by A. We have proved it. That is what the first part is. Now, for the second, it says you take the product of two real numbers. Then, if one of them is 0, definitely the product is going to be 0, that you have seen. But the other side is something like that. AB, the product is 0, then either A must be 0 or B must be 0. This is going to guarantee that A is 0 or B is 0. Again, we are in need of a proof. So, how to go along with the proof? This is assumed AB is going to be 0. If A is not equal to 0, just assume that A is not equal to 0. Then, if you are able to prove that B is 0, proof is over. That is the methodology you are going to adopt. So, assume that A not equal to 0. Once you are assuming that A is non-zero, immediately it gives a nice candidate 1 by A, the multiplicative inverse of A. This existence is guaranteed. And we know that 1 by A will give you 1. That can be used wherever we want. Now rewrite B. That's all. Nothing more than that we need. So simply write down our B, the usual fashion. B I can rewrite as 1 into B. 1 into B is nothing other than that 1 by A into B, because 1 by A into A is giving you 1. Again, this seems to be 1 by A times AB, associativity. But what about AB? AB is supplied to be 0, which means this is 1 by A into 0. Any real number into 0, already you have proved that it is 0. So B must be 0. So altogether, once the product of two real numbers is 0, one of them must be 0. If A is away from 0, it compulsorily gives that B must be 0. We are using it in our day-to-day life, but now from the system or the algebraic system, we are proving it. That is what's the power of algebra. Okay. So with this, at least we know very much familiar facts for us. We have used them. Now we can actually prove that once you are assuming the systems. It is a nice exercise if you are trying to do the following. The first one is you take A is a real number, additive inverse exists. I will call it as minus A. Just multiply it with B, then it turns out to be minus of AB. We are in need of a proof, which means how to go along with this. This actually says the following: for the real number A, you have an additive inverse multiplied with a B, then it will be take the product and the additive inverse will be same as for that given fellow. I mean minus A into B. Additive inverse of the product at one side is given. Similarly, the other side also, one more result also you can prove it if you want. A into minus B is also like that. But you need a proof. Try to do by just using the field axioms. Field axiom as well as we have proved one or two results. That's all. But as an application, this is also a nice thing to look at, because -1 into -1, 1 is existing as a multiplicative identity. So additive inverse of that, -1 into -1 actually gives you 1. But this has far-reaching applications. So for both of these are exercises. One can try and convince yourself how much powerful our system is. Now, so as far as we concerned, our beginning was something like that. R under addition as well as multiplication is a field. By that, we mean all whatever be the 12 axioms or properties, 12 axioms you are assumed. Using that, we can have many properties. But once you are working with R, with a field structure, obviously this addition and multiplication gives the inverse operations too, if you wish. One can formally define subtraction by just giving the definition as a minus b. By definition, that is the notation I am going to write it down. A minus b, one can just define it as a plus minus b. It means a minus b is defined as take the additive inverse of b, then add it with a. That is what is meant by subtraction. Very similarly, one can go for division also. A divided by b, a by b or a divided by this notation, any of the thing you can use it. That is formally defined as a into 1 by b, provided your b is away from 0. Because if b is away from 0, 1 by b is defined as a real number, and that multiplied product is guaranteed by closure. So that is what is the definition for the division, the inverse operations if we like. So in this field structure, one can easily define these two. So once you are looking all such things, we are at the top of the hill, in the sense that R under addition and multiplication, that is in the top. From there, it is very much easy to realize what are natural numbers, what are set, integers, what are rationals, and etc. So inside R, you can view n very easily. What you have to do is, already you have 1 in the real number system. That 1 you use it, and 1 plus 1 should be inside R. That will denote it by 2. That 2 plus 1 again will give us 3. So this inductive way actually defines n fully, and you can easily see that this n can be sitting inside R very nicely. Moreover, that inverse concept also, if you are using, one can just observe all these fellows are also inside. -1, -2 in this string also. Even rationals, whenever you are looking for, what exactly are rationals then? Obviously, you see from n towards to z, whenever you are moving, you are making use of the additive inverses also inside for some kind of completion. From z to q, if you are trying to move, what you are going to do is about multiplication structure also going to be completed, what you are expecting. But what you are trying to do is that at first q is going to be defined as all the p by q forms, where p and q are coming from the previous fellow z. Obviously, q is away from 0. That is what our definition for rationals. That is p by q form. All x's which looks like p by q, where p and q are integers and q is away from zeros. So in particular, all the set what you have done are going to be rationals. So naturally, are there any elements which are not rational? It comes very naturally, because n is sitting inside here, you can see, z is sitting inside q, you can see, and then q is also inside this R, that also we are observing. So what are real numbers? Real numbers they are simply these q's. I mean the rational numbers? Are there any number which is not, which can't be written in this form, P by Q form? That is the first non-trivial question we are going to look at here. How to do that? So, okay, we will try to answer such a question. Are there existing something beyond that? But just before that, some more notations also we can, whatever be the known notations, we can extend. It may be useful. See if even with rationals or even the real numbers itself, we can define the multiplication sum notations. X is any real number. If I'm taking, we can conveniently write it as x raised to 1 as x square. Our notation is x into x. Such a way we can do that. So x raised to n, we can just take the product up to n times. Such usual notations you can define it. Also define x raised to 0 by 1. So these are all the natural things we used to assume. And if you wish, one can also give x raised to minus 1 and all these things as multiplicative inverse of x whenever x is away from, and x raised to minus 1 as this one by x square, and so many things like that. So the usual notations we can just march towards, are there any numbers which are not representable in Q, or some numbers in the form of Q? That we'll try to look at. So what's our experience with rationals, irrationals? Are there any irrational number? Obviously, these questions we will tempted to answer with our Pythagorean thoughts from geometry. Once you are in geometry, the candidate you are here to look at with root 2 and all, very much familiar for us, because you just take a square whose sides are just being 1, then obviously some measurement will come with this diagonal. Diagonal should have some measurement, and Pythagorean schools will say that this is what is the meaning of root 2, that measurement. So there exists some quantity which are going to be called as root 2, and we are trying to answer that this fellow, this root 2, is going to be our candidate, which is not available in Q. It is not only about root 2, some other kind of irrationals also we can explain later, but this is the first instance we are observing through our geometrical point of view. But from analytical point of view, how will you do that? Even look at the field axioms. Just use the structure of R under addition and multiplication. How you can prove by yourself such a quantity exists or what a number exists? Is it so evident? Such questions we will try to answer. But this is from the geometrical intuition you are getting. So just keep away from that geometrical intuition for the time being, and we will think about is there such a number? The root 2 I am not writing as a symbol now, but what exactly it means is something like that. See, as you mentioned, you take x and multiply with itself. That is our notation for x square. So the same root 2 is existing in Q. That question can be rewritten as, is there exist an x whose square is going to be 2? A more profitable way of looking at that is that, is there exist a solution for this equation in Q? That also one can look for. Answer is no. How will you prove that? It comes as a nice theorem. There does not exist a rational number such that r square is going to be 2. It's not giving you that root 2 exists, or our notation r square equal to, later if it exists we can say that r is called as, or notation can be given as root 2 and all. That is a second level. First of all, we are trying to prove in Q you are not going to get a solution, which means there is, if r is a rational number, that r, whatever may be the value you are giving, square is not going to give you 2. So r square equals 2 is not solvable in Q. That is what we are trying to prove it. So how the proof goes? Proof may be Even you might have been seen in our plus 2 days also. More or less, it is the same way it goes around. So how very easily, quickly we will try to prove this. Suppose there exists a rational number r for which whole square is 2, which means I can write my r, there exists an r which I can write p by q, and r square is going to be 2, which says p by q whole square is going to be equal to 2. In another hand, p square by q square, the usual ways of manipulation, is going to be 2. This is the way what you are going to look at. So once you are assuming all this without loss of generality, we can assume so many facts about p and q. Whenever you are assuming r equals p by q, you can assume p and q are positive integers, q is not equal to 0, and additionally p and q are having the GCD 1, which means in the least form you can write p by q. There is no common factor greater than 1 exists for p and q. You can cancel out and write it down. All this way we can assume it naturally. So r is a number which is of the form p by q with GCD 1. All are positive, q is away from 0, we will assume. And if this p by q whole square is 2, which says p square by q square equals again 2, and it gives something like this. Whenever p square by q square equals 2, this implies p square equals 2q square. P and q are integers, remember that, positive integers. Now p square equals 2q square means p square is even to 2 times of q square. Q is an integer, q square obviously is an integer. So p square is even. P square is even will give that p is in fact even. Is it trivial? P square is even, then p is even. We need a proof for that. Proof is, so do it as an exercise. But it is easy. See, if you want to prove that p square is even, p is even, you can try contrapositive also. Then try yourself. If p is odd, then what will happen for p square? So we will assume that p square is even will give you that p is even. So once p is even and p and q are having the GCD 1, nothing is common. Obviously q, you can say something, q is an odd number, because p and q are going to have nothing in common greater than 1. So once p is even, q must be odd, it is sure. That is a fact you can mark it as. But this p is given, then what is the impact of that? You look at the equation, p square equals 2q square. Suppose p is even, I may write it as 2k, I push it inside here. Then what it goes to happen in this style is 2k square is going to be 2q square. Moment's thought, after cancellation I will be getting q square equals 2k square, which again says q square is even. But q square is even, as before, will guarantee that q is even. But obvious contradiction now. Once you have seen q is odd, now you are getting q is even. It never happens, right? An integer at the same time, it is going to be odd and as well as even. It is not going to happen. So it's a blunder or a contradiction. This contradiction actually proves that our assumption is not correct, and there does not exist an r rational number whose square is going to be 2. Later, whenever it exists, we can call that such an r, such an x is called root 2 and all, or it gives actually the proof that in that once you are adopting the notation, root 2 is irrational.